Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. Today's tutorial is going to be on creating doors. I try to do a live stream of this, but I end up having a crash and it corrupted my video. So we'll go ahead and we're going to kick this off and do this again. So I had a request for doors with keys, so we'll kind of go over that. And just to let everybody know too, if you visit my Patreon, you can always support me with $1 or $2 or whatever if you want to do some donations and continue the tutorials. And just to let everybody know too, I'm battling cancer, so my tutorials are going to be late coming out and stuff like that. So I go through chemotherapy, so sometimes I'll have a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in between videos, and sometimes so on and so forth. So all depending on my health. So I try to get these out there as soon as possible. So that's why my tutorials have been kind of slow and not coming out in the last couple months, 6 months, 7 months. If you notice, it kind of went quiet for a little bit. That's what I'm doing. I'm battling cancer, so just to give everybody a heads up. Okay, so to kind of kick this off, what I have here is I have a static mesh, just a regular static mesh, nothing on it. And then I have a static mesh with the door, okay, and the door blueprint. Now the door blueprint is run by a blueprint called the Rexen Interactable, which you'll find in your dev kit. And you can search for this. I would search for this exact name or part of the partial name in the content under your main content directory in the dev kit. So just kind of like how you do data tables with filters, you can do blueprints. Just go up to the main content and we can just type hopefully Rexen and that should bring it up. Whoops, make sure we kill off the data table there. Turn that off. Okay, and we just do Rexen. Let's see. There you go. So right there we got it come up. So it's RECS. We'll bring up the Rexen Interactable. Okay, and all you got to do is drag it out onto your map or your level that you're working on. Or if I recommend build your doors in almost empty maps, especially if you're just getting into the dev kit and you're not sure what's quite going on. This will kind of help you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and move that over and out of the way. So I got the Rexen Interactable. I got 3 of them laid out here. Now we'll go ahead and we'll look at the door that's got the Rexen Interactable on it already. So if you look at my details panel here to the right hand side of my screen, you're going to see a static mesh, a debug visual, text renderer, all that stuff. The text renderer is just the name that they put on the interaction trigger. So it should look like this when you're dealing with it. Okay. Now the static mesh is the mesh that you're going to have for your door. So it'd be a door, it could be a pillar. I mean, whatever mesh you want to put in there, you can actually make it lift up and down, go left and right, sideways. It all depends. This is a pretty neat blueprint that you can do a lot of cool things with, and it's already network synced and everything like that, so the other players and stuff like that on your server will actually see it working. So to get this blueprint actually operating is what we call a trigger box. Now the trigger box is the box that the player character's collision will actually come across the threshold that will allow the interaction. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and hit play here real quick and show you. So as you come up to the door, don't beat the door, but this one is a static mesh, obviously there's no E interaction, but we come up here, we're going to hit the threshold of the door and it says key required. I just hit E on it, so you need a skeleton key. Okay, so this door is actually locked. So we'll escape out of it real quick. So it requires a key. And where you assign that is on the details panel. You're going to go to the actual blueprint itself and highlight it. And you go down here, you're going to see in the list under the white ball, which is your actor itself, the main actor. You scroll down, you're going to see item required in the details panel here. And you check mark requires item. That means it's going to require a key. You could have it require demon blood for all you care and what you want to do. But it has to have the item number from the actual data table. So I'll bring up my data table real quick again. I'll go item table. And I'm just going to bring up the skeleton key because that's what it's required. So really quick, I'm going to bring this up here. We're going to type skeleton, S-K-E-L. It should bring us up skeleton key. So notice it's 11073, and down here, item required 11073. So that has to be in there. Now, you can make it require that the player loses the key too, so that they have to get the key every time to open a specific door. You just check mark remove item from player. So as soon as they trigger that door, There's a time on the door too that you can set, whether it stays open or closed for a certain amount of time. It ticks down. I recommend this if you're planning to have something constantly drop the key and you want the players to continue to get it. It creates replayability or whatever. It also could be quest. You could make like quests up and it requires that key, and of course the player has to go on a journey to get that key. But if you don't want them to have it removed, then all you gotta do is uncheck that, and the blueprint interactable will no longer request the item from the player's inventory. So it actually detects it when the player actually uses and executes it. Okay. So now, if we look at the door too, we get what we call the audio section of the door as well. So you'll see the audio here. We got sound on location, sound on reset of the door. So these are 5-second sound files. They're actually in the dev kit. They have stone sounds and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and if you hit the little search magnifying glass, it'll bring you to the sound effect, and I'll play it. Okay. And then we have the reset sound. Okay, so that's how you do that. So that gives you your sound for your different doors, and you can apply any sound to the door that you want to, as long as it makes sense. Now, speaking about resetting the door and stuff, so if we go back up to the default settings, you're going to see an interaction trigger. So you have to make sure this is checked so that it's an interaction trigger, so that this trigger that's floating around the blueprint, which we'll get in a little bit more depth here, that trigger has to be able to be told, hey, you got to interact with me. And self-reset interactable, in other words, that the door will go up and then come back down and reset itself. You want to make sure that that's checked too. You can make it to where the door will just open and stay open forever. That's all up to you and how you want to design your dungeon or your opening wherever you're planning to send a player. The reset cooldown time is the time it takes for the door to go up, and it sits there and it waits, and after it counts to 15 seconds, the door will come back down. So keep that in mind. The movement duration is for how many seconds the door will actually move up and then stop to the 15-second cooldown time. So the movement duration, you can set that. And if you notice that the sound files that were selected down here, believe it or not, these are 5-second sound files, and thanks to Funcom, they named it 5-second door close queue. So depending on the time and the seconds that you assign the resets, will depend on also the play times too. That way your play times make sense, so that your doors and stuff don't like play for 20 seconds but the door's already closed. It'd be kind of odd. So make sure you keep that in mind when you start assigning sound files and stuff like that to your doors. Okay, so with that being said, all right, we got that covered. I want to make sure, let me see if there's anything else I need to cover here. Okay, so now use interactable location adjustment. If you look at that, what that is it tells the door adjustment in the XYZ plane. So the Z is up and down, so think up and down. That moves 250 Unreal units in the engine. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's the up and down. And then you also have the rotation adjustment, which is where the interactable can actually do rotations and stuff. Notice that's unchecked here. Okay, so that is the door and how it operates. Now, what I recommend to simplify things, if you don't want to have to build your door from scratch, which you can, the best way to do it is go to the Dregs Dungeon map in the levels section and open up the Dregs Dungeon and look for the doors, and then make a copy of that door for yourself. Just go in, click on the door in the dungeon, copy it, and paste it to the level that you're working on. And then you can go ahead and adjust all the settings that way, because it's already pre-made. The door is going to move up and down for you. You know, really simple. Change out the mesh, what have you, if you decide to do that. Okay. But what we'll do is we'll build a door kind of from scratch here. So I'm going to highlight the Rexen blueprint here. So I'm going to pull this out here. Okay. And notice in my details panel, we have no sound effects. Going down here, no sounds. Requires item. All this is blank. So it's a blank door. But what we want to do is we want to make sure it's an interaction trigger. We want it to reset itself. We're going to give it a cooldown of 10 seconds. Okay. You can also set if you want to shoot arrows at it, the door can trigger as well. So that's another thing. The adjustment location, I'm going to go ahead and give it 179 for Z, for the Z scale, for up and down. We're going to leave interactable rotation alone. We're going to go ahead and skip the interactable values because that's other stuff you can play with, and I'm not going to get into that right now. Okay, and then we need the sound effects. So what I'm going to do is just quickly go over here to the door that's already pre-made so I can search to the sound effects. And I'm going to go ahead and click our blueprint again, and then I'm going to carefully, and what's neat about this is you can actually hit the little arrow and assign the sounds, right, this way by having it highlighted, or sometimes you can just drag it in. Drag and drop, okay? So we went and dragged and dropped the sounds in. We're going to go ahead and it's going to require an item, and let's go ahead and give it to 1107. Is it 3, I believe it was, for the skeleton key? Let me double check. Make sure it was it. Yep, okay, 111073. Okay, so now we need to do the mesh as well. So we got to go ahead and go up to the static mesh here, and we need to plug in a mesh. So I'm just going to search to the mesh here. We're going to go find content browser, and I'll bring up my mesh, and then I'm just going to go back down to my blueprint here and highlight this, and we can go ahead and just drag and drop in, or you can hit the arrow and drop it in. Now, notice that the door is super huge. We're going to have to resize it, so just double click the door on the blueprint and then scale it down using your white transform there to scale down your door to get your door fit. Now when you off click the blueprint, if you notice this, that the blueprint moves together with the door. Now if I double click the mesh, and it's hopefully this doesn't make, yeah, okay, you can move the static mesh off the center of the blueprint. So be careful when you do that. But what you want to do is you do not want to resize the blueprint with the door. Okay, you want to resize the mesh by itself. So just double click the mesh, have it highlighted, and then you can adjust, like I said, you can adjust the mesh to whatever size you need. You can also, there's a snap up here too. I got that on free mode, but you can actually snap it so it jumps in increments, okay? So keep that in mind as you're playing with these blueprints and stuff. Okay, so we have it all centered on there. And we go ahead and we'll hit save. So it's automatically recorded it. Now, the other part of the blueprint too, we got to realize too, is the trigger. Now the trigger, when you first start out, if we go to the details panel, the trigger box usually is hidden. Okay, so I'm just going to hide it here real quick. It's a hidden little box that's wrapped around the other yellow box when you first pull the blueprint out. So if you look in here, you can see I kind of expanded it on these blueprints to show you that it's there on the outside. But the actual blueprint will look like this, and the trigger box will be the size of the actual blueprint. Okay, so the trigger box, we want to make sure that it envelops the door, so when the player comes up to the door that they collide with that trigger to say, hey, you need to open. So if you go to the trigger box, double click it, now we can adjust the trigger box without adjusting the door, and we can scale it up. And say this is a two-sided door, so what we want to do is just make sure that our trigger is wrapping both sides of the door so that way our players will actually collide with it and be able to notify the blueprint, hey, the player's inside, they're going to use a key, they're going to trigger the door. So now we'll hit save here real quick, and we should be ready to go. So let's double check, and let's find out whether it tells me, prompts me for a key to open. Okay, it's prompted me for the key, which is good. Okay. So that's all working fine and dandy. So we'll hit play again, and I'm going to go ahead and summon up a skeleton key here. Control Shift Insert in the editor. Make sure you never hit escape in the editor because it kicks you out. We're going to go key, and let's look for skeleton key. There it is. Control Shift Insert. We go up to our door. We hit E. Now notice that my door didn't open. Sometimes this happens. Alright, so let's double check, make sure everything is connected correctly here. So we have the sound effect going. Sometimes these blueprints don't always function either. So let's make sure that this is actually functioning properly. Sometimes it does that, folks. It is very weird. I've noticed a lot of weird bugs that happen in the dev kit sometimes. So let's make sure that everything's good to go. Everything looks good. Oh, use location adjustment. Whoops, forgot to do that. So now it should adjust the actual static mesh. So let's double check. And more likely it's because I forgot to check that. There you go. So now it's going to move the mesh according to the location. Okay. So it can be very complex. So there's certain steps you must follow, and if you miss it, just go back, double check your steps like I just did, because there's something wrong. And either sometimes if you duplicate a blueprint or copy it, it'll actually bug out and not function. So just double check, delete the blueprint, redo it, whatever you need to do to get things fixed. So here we go. It's functioning and moving properly. Okay. So now we have the key. Oops, actually, let me hit play again. So we should have the key in the inventory if I remember correctly. And we didn't require it to remove the key, so let's double check. Make sure I still have the key. I gotta love this as it loads up here. Give it a second. Okay, so there's our skeleton key. All right, so that's functioning. All right, good. Okay, so we'll escape, and then what we'll do is we'll click on our blueprint, and we're gonna go down here and say, okay, I wanted to remove it from the player. So hit save here on our map, and let's go ahead and hit play from here. And now it should require the key, but also remove the key. Yep, skeleton key removed from inventory, so the door opens. So we have 10 seconds to pass through this door before it resets and then permanently locks. So we'll wait here for 10 seconds, wait for the door to close itself. All right, there it goes. And then we should now try to attempt to open the door. Because it removed the key, we can no longer open the door. Okay, so that is how you build the doors from scratch. Like I said, if you want to simplify things, you can copy another door from another area of the game, use that, paste them down, assign your keys, whatever you need to do, and change them up, change out the mesh. You know, everything usually most of the time is functioning properly. What we can do here is go Control Copy, Control V, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this door. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the requirement. Okay, we're going to use the skeleton key, but I'm also going to click on the static mesh here, and I'm going to change out the mesh. So I'm going to search for the mesh, and I'm going to go ahead and just for fun, I'm going to use the queen's head. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate her head here to the front, and I'm going to go ahead and let's shrink her head down a little bit. Okay, but also see, notice her head's large, so we're going to make sure, I'm going to go ahead and just expand that trigger box. So let's go ahead to our trigger box here, and let's expand that using our transforms, and we'll make sure that the triggers overlap in the entire skull here, so we know when our players hit it, it should move. And we're going to hit save. We hit play from here. And we go in here, we hit E, skeleton key required, Control Shift Insert. Let's go ahead and get our skeleton key, summon it up, hit E, there you go. And there we have it. We have her skull or her face as a door. So you could create secret doors behind other objects, whatever you decide to do. I'll do one more example here. Well, actually, I'll do two more just for fun. Okay, so we'll go ahead and duplicate this again. Like I said, if you notice, I'm just duplicating the blueprint now. And I'm going to duplicate one more time here. I'm going to space them out just right so they're not overlapping too much. And then on this mesh, what we're going to do is we're going to swap it out. Let me actually search to it. And let's pull, let's use a pillar. So we can grab the pillar and drag it in, right? So we got the pillar there. We can expand the pillar, and let's set it down here so it's like on the deck here. So it looks right in the adjustments, okay? And then for this one, let's search to it. And let's just go ahead and put just let's just put this mesh in there. We'll put this wall mesh in there just for fun. And we'll expand our wall mesh. Like I said, remember, double click the mesh and adjust it on the blueprint itself, on the actor. Okay, and remember your triggers. So now what we can do is we can go in here and we hit the trigger, and now we can just adjust the triggers so they're not too large and overlapping and strangely. So just remember to adjust your triggers accordingly, so that way you can get the appropriate, collisions with the player. So we'll get this trigger box. Okay, we'll adjust it. And let's adjust it to the left and right here. And let's bring the trigger down a little bit. Okay, and then let's hit save. And depending on your blueprint too, where it's sitting, remember, wherever your blueprint's sitting is where the start of the initial riding up of the door or the shifting of the door left and right will tend to happen. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll save this one more time. I'll hit play from here. Let me grab some skeleton keys. That way we get a couple looted up here since I didn't change those. Control Shift Insert, skeleton key. Okay, so we go up to our pillar, and our pillar moves. So you can do all kinds of neat little things with it, you know, play around, you know, visual effects, stuff like that. Go up to this block at this door, same thing. So the different things you can do in being creative. And the Rexen blueprint goes into deeper stuff, but I'm not going to cover that. I just wanted to cover the doors and keys to give you an idea how it operates, because there was a request for it. So you can have a lot of fun with this. You know, play around with it, play with the Z scale, the X and Y, and the rotations, because you can create rotating. There's a lot of cool things you can do with the Rexen blueprint, but always remember, don't over adjust it too much or out of whack the speeds too much too, because what will happen is you can actually crash the dev kit and the blueprint, because depending on the speed of the Rexen and the distance that it has to travel can cause certain errors and stuff like that. I've played with it, and believe it or not, you can actually push the blueprint too far and it'll continue to crash every time you interact with something. So remember to keep those speeds and those distances it travels in good approximation. Okay. So other than that, I think we kind of covered everything as far as the doors and the keys. And like I said, if you have any other questions or anything like that, I try to do tutorials, you know, to help people, but I do not do scripting. Okay, so don't expect me to script up a blueprint and show you how to network connect and all that. I do not do those sorts of things. I actually have other people help me with those things. So I answer requests based on things that I can actually do myself and be able to give you a tutorial on. So don't ask me for far-fetched things. I do not do 3D modeling. I do not do animations and things like that. I know a little bit about it, but I don't code it and plug it all in. So those are things you're going to have to go to, like the official modding Discord. And believe it or not, there are a lot of modders out there who know or have knowledge of those certain particular areas. I do a lot of dungeon building and level design, so that's where my heart and passion is in the artistic things. So keep that in mind when you do requests. I'll try to help you as best I can, or I'll try to point you in those directions. But like I said, the Conan modding Discord is probably the best place to get some of those weird, strange animation problems you might have, or questions, or custom NPCs you want to create. The only thing I do with custom NPCs is I duplicate the blueprint and I might put in another mesh and figure out how the animations kind of line up. But really, I don't do a lot of custom stuff, especially right now with this Age of Sorcery getting ready to come out. There's a lot of things that are going to change, so I tend not to play with a lot of those data tables and blueprints and things like that, etc. I recommend against it right now until we know what's going to happen with the Age of Sorcery and how that turns out. But hopefully this will cover the doors for those folks who've been asking about it and how to make the doors happen. I'll look at the forums or my messages on YouTube, my Discord channel. You can join my Discord, join my Patreon. Right now I'm working on a custom map, so a brand new map for Conan. It's not vanilla Conan map. It's an actual custom map, full scale. It uses the entire map, not just portions of the map. So I'm currently working on it, called the Empire of Stygia right now. You can join my Discord and follow the progress on that. We have 7 months into it, and I just put another member on the team to help me finish this, because battling cancer and stuff like that, it's really slowed me down on production, but we're slowly getting there and creating a really cool custom map. So I just want to put that out there and let folks know that's out there too as well. Without further ado, I guess that kind of ties up this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel and coming here, and I try to help everybody as best I can. I'm a modder who will actually, answer those questions when I can, or try to point you in the right direction. There's no secrets. I love Unreal Engine and the development process, and I'm currently developing an indie game myself. But if you're interested in Unreal and stuff like that, Engine, I suggest you study it, read about it. There's a lot of cool things on the marketplace to incorporate into Conan. Remember, versions do apply to Conan. It's 4.15.3 is the engine. So if you do any products for the marketplace, I recommend 4.15 versions. However, you can convert 4.27 all the way back to 4.15, but it's going to require a lot of work and a lot of material building, texture imports, FBX imports, model imports, etc., etc. So keep that in mind as well. So, all right, folks. Well, thank you again. I appreciate your guys' support once again. Please visit my Patreon, my Discord channel. Thank you for enjoying my mods. You can get my Discord channel from my Steam page as well. And without further ado, have a good day, good weekend, wherever you're at. Good night. See you later.